This session is to take ahead the discussion that we started in the transformational change in reference to the global pharma crisis. All one needs to do is to look at the situation objectively from a distance, and it is obvious that the trend in the global pharma industry, mostly from the R&D point of view, but generally from the global pharma industry point of view, the entire business as it has existed for over a century, the trend is obvious. The entire global pharma industry is on a steep downward slope, and this is a natural process that is mandatory, that is integral in any transformational change process. So far, throughout the history of industry and enterprise, many industry sectors have gone through this transformational change process. The industry sectors have been broken down. Big companies, big players in each industry sector have been broken down. They have had to go through crisis situations, then they have been transformed, they have re-emerged. The automotive industry, the telecommunications industry, information technology industry, these are industries that go through a very rapid turnaround time, transformational change cycle. Also the real estate industry in the US. Recently the finance and investment industry, the banking industry, which was responsible for the global economic crisis. All industry sectors, apart from the global pharma industry, have gone through severe crisis, remodeling, reshaping, re-emergence processes. But the global pharmaceutical industry for the last century or so has somehow managed to avoid this crisis, breaking down, re-emergence, transformational change kind of a process successfully. And one of the reasons is that the pharmaceutical industry per se, entirely, since it is connected with the topic of health of human beings, is considered slightly sacrosanct. And to that extent, all the problems, challenges that generally trigger this transformational change process in any entity in this world, those problems, challenges have been kind of buffered for the pharmaceutical industry. They are in a way supported and they are protected by the global governments and in a way by taxpayer money over decades. And that is one of the reasons that today, as the global pharmaceutical industry R&D models stand, where millions and sometimes billions of dollars are invested at a very high risk level for the production of new successful molecules, this has been allowed to grow to this extent. In a way, it has been allowed to be fattened, been pampered to this extent, because the industry as a whole is considered as a sacrosanct industry, slightly above the rest of the businesses and industry sectors. And in core value, this is true. It is valuable. It is connected with health of human beings and it has served a very elite purpose. and it needs some kind of buffer and protection. But at the same time, as a part of business, it is just like any other business. And unless it is ready to go through this change of devolution, it cannot go through a change of evolution. It has to be broken down as it exists. Only then it can resurface, re-emerge and get transformed. And currently the trend in the global pharmaceutical industry, the global pharma R&D models is evident. It is on a downward slope. It is in a process whereby the global pharma industry as it exists today, as it has existed for over the past century or so, is about to come to an end. And there is a coalition of factors which have been arranged in such a way that there doesn't seem to be any way out left for the global pharma industry, for the global pharma R&D models to escape this crisis, crash, devolution scenario anymore. And in a way, it is good that the global pharma industry as it has existed till today ends, goes through this process of complete destructuring. Only then there is a chance that it can be restructured. There is of course a risk associated with this because majorly there have been huge financial investments, financial interests, vested interests that have been associated with the global pharma industry for many decades now. And the entire industry has been looked upon as an excellent financial tool by many big players on the global scene. Even today, since it is the developed world that governs, the majority political pressure and the major decision-making powers in the global pharma industry today, the major decisions are still governed by the vested interests of political and financial powers. There is a big risk that this situation goes through. It will be excellent if this natural course of devolution is allowed to be followed. But because of political and financial vested interests, it is possible that again there will be some manipulation done to this scenario, because the leaders of the global pharma industry over the past century have always benefited financially from the success of the pharmaceutical molecules so far, from the blockbuster molecules so far. And that is the only scenario that they are habituated to. And out of that habit, out of that continuation of that power trip, continuation of that ego trip, there is a big risk that the leaders of the major players in the global pharma industry will twist and turn this process and try to take it to their advantage and try to extend this in a manipulated manner. But some or the other place, the price, the cost has to be paid, and that will be paid of course by the taxpayer money globally. There is a big chance that this will not happen, because the awareness level of the patient population, the physician population, the global population across the world has gradually increased, and it has become possible to separate the value part of the industry, which is really very high as compared to all other industries in the world, from the business part of the industry. And it is important that the business part of the industry follows the same patterns and trends as all other businesses and all other industry sectors. And it is these increased awareness levels across the global population that act as a check against the power trip, ego trip driven leaders of the global pharma industry today. If it follows its natural course, the global pharma industry, as we have known it till today, will go down, will be broken down. There doesn't seem to be any other way out, and it is good that it goes through that natural devolution process, so that through that acceptance there is a chance for creative solutions of restructuring, new transformational change processes in this entire scenario. Of course, these are not the only effects. There is a small but increasing number of decision makers. There is a small trend of decision makers, of leaders, a very small fraction who are able to detect this change of devolution in the life cycle of global pharma R&D and are detecting and trying to alert and accept and present this obvious change, obvious direction. And this group of leaders, these few rare individuals, do understand the importance of aligning the global pharma industry with this downward process and accepting that, and are actually the forward-looking thinkers that are in a process of triggering creative solutions for the future of the global pharma industry. So of course there is optimism and hope, but there is also a risk and caution connected to the majority of the developed market mindset dominated leaders in the higher management of majority of the global pharma, top global pharma companies that are stimulated majorly by a power trip, ego trip. And it is important to be conscious and aware that this decision making process does not dominate the future of the global pharma industry. Otherwise, it leads to a painful and dangerous and harmful destruction of an industry that has contributed so much of beauty, well-being in the field of healthcare. Instead of accepting the natural process of devolution, which will lead to a transformational change in the future. A vast majority of the decision makers, higher management leaders in the global pharma industry are biased by the developed market mindset of decades of financial success, and it is next to impossible for them to have that mindset of looking beyond this frame of reference of financial success and it is becoming like a bootstrap paradox. Because of this bias, they are as if trying to lift themselves with their own bootstraps, and the conclusions are obviously either that they cannot lift themselves, or if they try too hard then they will topple down and fall. And this bias of financial success is a inherent trap in this developed market mindset, and that habit of creating more and more financial success as if blinds these leaders from the obvious process of devolution, and the mind then leads them to an extension of the power trip and ego trip. Whenever we have been asked to study this case and have looked upon solutions, we have come up with the same observation that it is important to align ourselves with the trend of devolution in this global pharma R&D scenario, and not try to counter that change in any way, and then accepting that devolution process, try to come up with new transformational change approaches. And from that point of view, there are two models: the emerging market vis-a-vis developed market model, wherein the emerging market mindset is looked upon as a framework which is outside the current entire global pharma R&D scenario, to provide a framework for transformational change. Another model that has been worked upon and creatively designed is the Nataraj model for dealing with the crisis situations in the general business scenario, or specifically in the global pharma R&D crisis situations, wherein devolution is looked upon as a natural part of the evolution cycle of the transformational change cycle, and there are special solutions that have been devised to address this crisis situation in the global pharma R&D scenario in a holistic manner. We are trying to address several such issues on our global online platform samandneil.com. If you have any suggestions, questions, feedback, do contact us for a free consultation on our online platform samandneil.com.